Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Webinar 4.0 CSR, the Emerging Scenario. Corporate social responsibility has really been a buzzword since 2014 when India became the first country to legally mandate CSR. Since then, the term CSR has made an appearance almost everywhere. Amidst this COVID 19 pandemic, in this session, we will deep dive into CSR and look at the emerging scenario of CSR because this is a time when we as development organizations need these resources the most, but we really wonder how we connect and how we access these. In our midst today, we have an extremely eminent group of panelists representing corporates, chambers of commerce, and foundations, and I'm extremely pleased and honored to welcome them. Mrs. Rajshri Natarajan is not a new name in the CSR space. She is an IT industry veteran with over 28 years of global experience. In her current role as the CEO of Cognizant Foundation, she contributes towards evolving an overarching charter for the foundation, defining the CSR strategy and goals, managing operations, communication, and relationship with a broad set of stakeholders. In her 24 years of service in the IT industry, she's played diverse leadership roles driving strategic and transformational initiatives. As global head of process and platforms in Cognizant, she was responsible for developing cutting-edge technology solutions and incubating new product ventures that support global delivery. Mrs. Rajashri is a passionate learner, trainer, and speaker in industry forums. She mentors several startups and has facilitated many interactive workshops for designing lean processes and creative technology solutions for complex business and social needs. She's passionate about spending time with nonprofit organizations and social enterprises, actively contributing to the field of education. We're extremely delighted to have you here with us today, ma'am. Thank you. We look forward to hearing from you on your years of experience and passion in this space. Mr. Kumar Padmanabhan is our next panelist, and he's currently the CEO of PPG Asian Paints since November 2014, and he's based out of Mumbai. Prior to this leadership position, Mr. Kumar was with PPG, heading the Packaging Coatings SBU for the rest of Asia, Asia Pacific, excluding Greater China. Mr. Kumar started his career in 1989 with the Tata Group's EPC arm, Tata Projects, as a project executive with Tata Klockner, based out of Delhi. He was a business development manager for chemical plants when he left the Tata Group to join Air Liquide Industrial Gases in 1996. With Air Liquide, Mr. Kumar had an international career working out of successful leadership positions based out of Paris, Houston, Los Angeles, Delhi, Bangkok, and Singapore, handling commercial management, operations management, country management, and regional management roles. After 17 years with Air Liquide, Mr. Kumar joined PPG in early 2013 as a rest of Asia business head for packaging coatings based out of Thailand. PPG is a world leader in Asian paints and coatings, headquartered in Pittsburgh, USA. In late 2014, Mr. Kumar was appointed the CEO of PPG's joint venture in India, PPG Asian Paints, his current role. In his 30-year career, Mr. Kumar has worked in and led multicultural teams across several countries and various businesses. He believes that taking up new assignments in areas often unfamiliar is important for one's overall development. Extremely well qualified. We thank you, Mr. Kumar, for your presence with us today. We look forward to hearing about your experiences with CSR in India. Thank you.
Sure. Pleasure to be here.
Mr. B.C. Datta has more than 40 years of experience in Indian taxes and various capacities and has 15 years experience in taxation and corporate affairs in the automobile industry. He is presently working as Vice President of Corporate Affairs in Hyundai Motor India. Mr. Datta has been actively involved in various CSR activities of the Hyundai Foundation for the past 10 years. He is part of the core team in proposing and implementing the Nursing Assistant Program in Hyundai, which has helped hundreds of young deserving girls to get employment and serve the society. Mr. Datta, through Hyundai and Lions Club, has been supporting blood donation camps and helped many medical emergency cases in Chennai to get timely support. He is a member of SIAM, Association of Automobile Manufacturers in India. He is also the elected State Council member of MCCI. Mr. Datta has published articles on indirect taxes in several magazines, newspapers, and journals, and has also written 2 books on the VAT and GST. His book on Karnataka VAT, published in vernacular language, is the first such effort in the country. He is a very active member of the CSR activities and is one of the trustees of the HMIF Foundation. We thank you, Ms. Lata, for your valuable time and look forward to listening to your vast experience in the CSR space. Thank you. The last panelist, Mr. Milind Jadhav, is a Senior Director, Inclusive Business, Philanthropy and Social Impact for Essilor in South Asia. In his role, he's been responsible for spearheading the initiatives pertaining to building affordable and innovative vision care solutions for the base of the pyramid population. He also works to raise awareness about the socio-economic impact of uncorrected refractive errors and quality of life benefits of visual correction. He's also in charge of the Essilor Vision Foundation, a trust that focuses on improving awareness and provides access to vision care to the needy. Mr. Milind's mission is to drive philanthropy initiatives, social impact projects, and build inclusive business solutions in the Indian subcontinent region through innovative delivery models and product service innovation. An industry veteran, Mr. Milind brings deep experience in setting up new businesses that entail strategizing and efficient execution for last-mile connectivity. Mr. Milind is the industry representative to the Executive Board for Vision 2020, which is the apex committee for vision care in India. He's also been a committee member for entrepreneurship and skill development of CII. We thank you, Mr. Milind, for accepting this invitation, and we look forward to hearing about the role of innovation and importance of assessing social impact in the development sector. And last, I would quickly like to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Sandeep Mukherjee. Mr. Mukherjee has over 3 decades of experience spreading across financial and social development sector. He also has wide exposure in people management, human resources, learning and development, insurance underwriting, marketing, sales, and fundraising. He has extensively handled board, legal, and company secretarial matters and has also represented India as HR leader in the single HR organization of 9 Asia Pacific countries. As president at Hand in Hand India, he oversees the Village Upliftment Initiative, partnerships and alliances, and also supports with several key activities. I now hand over the session to the moderator and hope you all enjoy the discussion for the next 1 hour. We encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A box that you can see on your screen. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Sandeep.
Thank you very much, Sahana. A very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sahana. Respected panelists, respected participants, respected Kalpana ma'am, my colleagues from Hand in Hand family, and all participants, a very warm welcome to all of you to this much awaited webinar. As we are all aware, we are in a very strange, unprecedented situation where the whole world is fighting against a phenomenon which is unknown. The COVID-19, the pandemic, it has led to a lot of disturbance, turbulence, and with life, human existence, and also economic ramifications. So it is thus in the fitness of things that we talk about corporate social responsibility in this emerging scenario. In this backdrop, the way we have planned it, we have got a set of questions which are classified into 3 categories: overview and learnings, the emerging scenario, as well as fruitful collaborations between corporates and the social development sector. We are fortunate and privileged to have an erudite team of panelists who bring with them not only their years, I would say decades of experience and wisdom, as well as knowledge, and we would get the benefit of their advices in this next 1 hour. We have a challenge of time because there's so much to talk about, so much to learn, but we'll try our best. So in this perspective, I request Madam Rajeshri Natarajan. Madam, would you kindly share your thoughts with respect to what are the key learnings related to CSR in your very wide experience, both from your organization, the industry that you represent, as well as from the geography? And what would be the best CSR initiatives that you have seen? We would like to hear from you, ma'am.
It's a easily asked but the most challenging question. And thanks a lot for Hand in Hand Academy for having us here. It's a kind of a wonderful list of participants as I see it, a lot of people eagerly. So the question that you asked that, what are our learnings? Let me be honest, we have completed 15 years of journey at Cognizant Foundation. So like many foundations, corporate foundations, we started thankfully with at least broadly focus areas, so to say. Healthcare and education is how we started off with. But within that, if you take India is a large country with a variety of problems and challenges, and therefore there are opportunities for us to put our best of the efforts to try and solve here and there or come up with some model implementation and so on. But having said that, since the challenge was so wide and vast, right, we started doing many things, and quickly we realized that sharpening our focus is going to help us in a very, very big way. If you ask us what's been the key learning for us in the last 15 years, it's sharpening, because we are further sharpening and sharpening every year as we move along. We started, way back about 10 years back, saying that it's not just about healthcare and education. We should actually pick up a flagship area within that or a program within that. So we started with avoidable blindness as one. Of course, there are a lot of deliberations saying how we choose a focus area. Should it be something that where, as an organization, it should be an immediate extension of our core competency. Coming from the technology world, of course, technology, we see it as an enabler for any industry or any sector that way. So why did we choose healthcare as more for a national priority? If you take world over, there are 39 million blind, and out of which 12 million is out of India, and that to 75 to 80% is actually avoidable. Was striking a card with us. If it is, blindness is so avoidable, and we have such a large share of people in the world blind population, why are we letting them blind in the first place? So that's what struck a card, and we started sharpening and focusing on that. And of course, other focus areas started coming after that. In education, we picked up access to higher quality education through scholarship as another flagship program. And again, later we started with livelihood and skilling. There again, we started focusing on PWD, persons with disabilities and so on. That actually, if you look at it, that one of the key learning is that if you choose a focus area, many of the other things fall in place. So you can very clearly have what is a goal that we want to target, what is that we want to solve as a problem. And okay, fine, there are many people who are working, like Milind was just talking about, there are many people who are working on avoidable blindness. So which are all the more areas which needs attention? Many people were not aware when we started retinopathy of prematurity as a problem statement. And people were aware of cataract and the corrections and so on. Of course, that is still a large number. India is still not a solved problem. But there are areas where it's completely lacking attention, like retinopathy of prematurity. So why don't we actually start supporting and picking it up in a program way? So we further, sharpen the focus. So many things. Once you sharpen the focus, you can very clearly have a goal. You can your network of partners is getting in a very selective list. Therefore, you can invest a lot of our effort and energy to understand the space better for us to understand the problems. We can bring in the right experts by connecting to a few set of people, who are really expert in that space and so on. And that was helping us to, come up with, okay, fine, if this is a problem, what is the problem? Is it the tracking the problem? Is it the management the problem? The governance the problem? What type of solutions and the technology, a partnership helps there, so that we can get all our energy focused on bringing up a big impact in that area. So the sharpening the focus, I would say, is the number one, a learning that we got. I think the initial few years that we had been playing a lot of grant mode and a project mode, but now very clearly we are kind of focusing, and it's going to be a longer term sustainable program. And then sustainability means many things, right? Sustainability is who's going to pay. Eye care, if you look at it, there are Harvard case studies that how really these many players are crop subsidizing and not necessarily only looking at government for subsidizing, but also other cross subsidizing within the sector and so on. So there are a lot of models which we are able to appreciate. Now that is slowly helping us also to kind of understand and appreciate and lift and drop it further. We also look at coherence. Because we work on, say, preventing avoidable blindness, when we started looking at skilling, we realized that one of the challenge in that sector is having actually optician technician, a vision technician. So now we started focusing on skilling for vision technician, which is actually opening up career for women from rural areas. A very meaningful, respectable career. Not just a livelihood, but a respectable career. But at the same time, it is for solving a problem in the sector. So we also started looking at in livelihood how we can feed and so on. So definitely sharpening the focus and looking at the coherence across the sector, I would say, is a big one. I'll wait for others to add on, and then I'll
Want them to see me.
Yeah.
Very well said, ma'am. Frankly speaking, you've set the tone of this discussion, and you're very right. There's so much to be done in this country that when we need to have courage, sharpening of focus, and that's very important. And these are wonderful learnings that you have shared. Look at the number of blind people and what we're doing. And I would definitely like to hear from the others, particularly down the line with Mr. Milind Jadhav, who is in this space. But I would just, before that, request Mr. Padmanabhan to please share his thoughts in this field.
Sure, Sandeep. First of all, thanks a lot for having me here. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be with you and also address the participants here. So in our case, just to give a quick background, so I work for a paid company, as was mentioned. We have 6 locations in India. We have 4 plants and 2 major offices. One is a corporate R&D as well, and the other one is a corporate office. So our primary objective has been to uplift and improve the communities around these 6 locations. So that's been the broad objective. Now within that, we have taken 4 broad themes or focus areas, you may want to call it, which is around health and hygiene and education, vocational skills, and also bringing color to people's lives. Since I work for a color company, getting color is very important. I'll talk about it also shortly on what we do precisely. And the idea really has been to make sure that the communities are, because we are there, our own livelihood is because of them. So it's important to keep them healthy and happy as we go along. So that was the broad themes under which we work on. And what are the learnings? So we have had a lot of learnings. I mean, Sandeep, we have worked with your organization a lot in the last few years. And some of the learnings that we have had personally, myself and also the company, first is that employee engagement. I think it's absolutely critical to make sure the employees are engaged with whatever initiatives we do. Whether we do it with an NGO or we do it directly, it's important that it's not just we give something and then stay away from it. It's important to have the employees as part of it, and that way they also engage better. Their motivation is also better because there's a larger purpose that they are working on. The other thing that we learned, and I think Rajshri alluded to that, is around sustainability. So when we do something, it's important to make sure that it's sustainable. There's no point in doing something and then after that you come out of it. The third thing we learned is around, when you start something, start small. Do a pilot, get a feel for the situation, and then scale it. And don't go for a big bang straight away, because sometimes that causes problems. The fourth thing which we learned is also what works in one place doesn't work in some other place. So it's important to have a tailor-made solution for any particular area. Sometimes we did an initiative in a particular place and the same thing, it boomerang. So it's important to understand that. That was the key learnings that we had. And then you had a question around what is your favorite, or what's a project that you really like. So for us, it's the global flagship project, Colorful Communities, and Sandeep, you were part of it. So Colorful Communities is a program, since we work at a paint company, is to bring color to people's lives. And typically we choose schools for the underprivileged. So we go there and we completely transform the facade and the classrooms, make it more colorful. And it's also, there's research which proves that having color in classrooms certainly enables education and development of the child. So we do that quite a lot. And that's my favorite, because one is that it's completely employee oriented. So all the employees, including me, everybody participates in that program. And Sandeep, you are part of it. We also make sure the NGOs participate with us, and the local community and the local students as well participate. We had the opportunity to color a school in Pondicherry, where one of the people who studied at the school actually was employed with us. So he was really moved. And Sandeep, you've seen the impact before and after, tremendous of the students. So that's my favorite. And, I look forward to doing many more like that. Sandeep, that's a quick roundup of some of the questions that you asked. I'll now hand over to you to take it further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's really very, very encouraging. And frankly speaking, you have stimulated the thought. Employee engagement is not only here to stay, but it's become part of our DNA now. And in the COVID situation, we've learned one more thing. We are having this distance employee engagement, where we are taking advantage of technology. So it's a merging of what Madam Rajshri said a little while, technology and all that. And for all our participants who have not had the privilege of being, but basically once the institution is colored, it has been our experience that children want to go back to school. earlier if the school atmosphere itself is not congenial. So it's really wonderful. Thank you so much for your wonderful thoughts. Mrs. Jadhav, may I request you to please share your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep. Good evening to all. Namaskar. And thank you again, Mr. Sandeep, and hand in hand for this opportunity. I'm really privileged and honored to be part of this August gathering. So just to come to your answer, Mr. Sandeep, let me give you a little background on Essilor. So many of us might be knowing Essilor Luxottica is a global leader in the design, manufacturing, and distribution of ophthalmic lenses, frames, and custom glasses. So we are almost like $18 billion company. And this company brings together the complementary expertise of the two industry leaders. One is the lens technology Essilor, and the other one is the craftsmanship iconic eyewear of Luxottica. And the important brands for us are like Ray-Ban, Oakley. And in lens technology, we have brands like Crizal, Varilux, Eyezen, Preventia, Transitions, and many more. And also we have this world-class retail brands, which includes Sunglass Hut. You must have seen Sunglass Hut at airports and other places, and also Lens Crafter. So these are all part of the Essilor family. Now coming to Essilor, Essilor is a very unique company. So we are a mission-driven company where the mission for all of us in Essilor is improving lives by improving sight. It's very simple. Somebody can see better, they can learn better, they can earn better, they can live better. So living better starts with seeing better, and this is a very important mission for all of us in Essilor. And this mission is actually in the front of all of us, which means business follows the mission. Mission is at the core of everything what we do in Essilor. And this mission is led from the very top of the organization. We have a separate chief mission officer to drive and accelerate mission-oriented initiatives and actions across the globe for us in Essilor. For us, what is important is good vision. So we think good vision is the most fundamental right of human beings. And we have taken a global ambition to eliminate uncorrected poor vision by 2050. Like all of us know, uncorrected poor vision is the public crisis with several social and economic consequences. Today, almost 2.5 billion people have this uncorrected poor vision, which is almost 1 in 3 people. And this is due to lack of access or because of awareness, because people don't give importance to vision the way we give importance to other healthcare issues. And most of these people, the 2.57 billion people which I mentioned, 90% of them, they live in the developing economies, which is at the base of the pyramid. So in last year, in 2019, during the United Nations General Assembly in New York, we launched this report, which is Eliminating Poor Vision in One Generation. And this report is one of its kind roadmap. We developed how to eliminate uncorrected poor vision. And this is basically the analytical support from the global health expert of McKinsey & Company. They helped us to make this report. And basically what we're trying to focus on 4 areas of action. The first one is creating sustainable access points to inclusive business models. So the 4 areas of actions what we're doing is creating, first one is creating sustainable access points through community-based inclusive business models. So Rajeshwari Madam was just mentioning about this part. So ma'am, I'm very happy to let you know that this is our focus area. And you must have heard about this program called iMitra Optician, where we train and support the youth from the rural areas to start a small optical business in their communities. So this way we create livelihood for the people in the rural areas, and through them we reach out to the rural communities. And this program is started in India, and today we are doing this program in India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Kenya, Cambodia, and very soon we are going to start in China. So the first focus area is this sustainable access point. The second focus for us is philanthropy. So philanthropy, which is the strategic giving, in like this is something which is very important. So I'll discuss more on this philanthropy as we move forward. The third focus area is raising awareness for vision care. So vision care is very important. And as I said, the biggest obstacle is awareness. People don't give importance to vision. We do a lot of programs to create awareness on vision. So Mr. Sandeep was asking me, the second part of the first question was the important CSR activities is what we have done. So we recently did a campaign in UP. Mr. Amitabh Bachchan was the brand ambassador. This campaign was called See Now campaign. And the whole objective of this campaign was to create more awareness on vision and to motivate people to get their eyes checked. So this was one of the biggest programs what we did. So we do a lot of programs to create awareness. So this is the third area of action. The fourth area of action is to innovate or to create affordable products, screening tools, services, which can deliver to the bottom of the pyramid segment of the society. So, like we have, I'll just give one example. So we have this spectacle called Ready to Clip. So it's a frame, and we have fully cut lenses, and the lenses is like when you do the screening program, and especially for the children, the power in the right eye and the left eye is different. So if you need to make a spectacle, it takes time. So we have this frame, fully cut lenses. Depending on the power of the children, you can clip the lens on the frame. It takes 10 seconds, and you can deliver the spectacle to the children on the spot. So this is very unique. So we have this model, tele-refraction model, where we can do this screening through using technology, like Uber model. It's technology. So the optom or the doctor is at any location around the world, and through the primary vision care providers, we can reach out to the communities. So we do a lot.
Use this time. It's very, very interesting what you are suggesting, and noble vision of our has to be created. I think that should be a session by itself when we are all together and learn better. So thank you so much. In fact, what you've said is very, very learning. May I request Mr. Datta to please share his thoughts, his experience, because more than 50 people from him.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Very, very thankful, to Mr. Sandeep and the team for inviting me into this, and then and very, very eminent, panelists. And of course, all of you have spoken on all the activities, but of course, I'll make it very brief. I think 2-3 minutes is the time given. So Hyundai Motor, of course, is there for the last 25 years in India. And we spend well over 2% of our profit in terms of, the spending. I mean, this is little more than the regulation that prescribed by the government of India as of now. Our main focus will be, so far is on the safety and technical education. We have taken these two parameters as our very focus area, because the number of deaths in India, I was told it used to be much more than this COVID, this thing. So that, of course, we have taken it in very, very seriously. Whether the state government or government of India, ministers, everybody gets, involved in these activities. That's the kind of, every state also, wherever we go, we involve the government, that is the ministers, so that it gives so much impact. And we also start teaching these safety regulations to the students than the elders. So it gives education in the beginning itself. So that the kind of activity. In addition to that, we also do a lot of technical education. We take over the ITIs all over the country and then train them in the automobile engineering, and then put them onto either in of our dealers' locations, or they will work in any of our vendors, like that. At any point of time, anybody wants a technically trained automobile industry, person, an employee, we can provide you in hundreds. I mean, that's the kind of system that we have so far created within the country. That's the biggest achievement. We also have as our brand ambassador Mr. Shah Rukh Khan, a very well-known film actor in India, of course, all over the world, and we use him in all these safety initiatives. There is one campaign that we are running called Be the Better Guy. And if you have not seen, definitely you need to go to YouTube and then open up and then see. So one of the very best videos that millions of Indian viewers have seen and appreciated. There are several stories also we carry in that, and making it more and more interesting and educating also. Coming back, these are all happening pre-COVID. Of course, post-COVID, of course, the whole story is different. Now we are spending more on controlling this pandemic, or how do we support the local state governments? Yeah, this is the initiative. Of course, there are many things that we can discuss. So let the discussion go on. Later, I'll answer them. Thank you so much.
In fact, if I were to venture and make a sort of a summary of what we have spoken in this first round, it seems that there's a lot of intermingling. We are all talking about sustainability, which is very important, which is fundamental. As Mr. Kumar said, that the community, the importance of the community, and simultaneously technology. So ultimately, we are moving towards the same direction, that all work in CS is of the people, for the people, by the people, as all said so. So having learned, it's really wonderful to know what your respective organizations have been doing. In fact, as Madam rightly said, sharpening our focus. That's very important because there's so much to be done. I think we should move on to the next segment, the emerging scenario. COVID has not been a pandemic. Frankly speaking, it has been a pandemonium. And we all need to reset the compass. And in this perspective, Madam, may I seek your views about, in the wake of this COVID-19, what is the strategic shift that we need to do in the space of CSR? And how would you, on the strength of your very vast experience, knowledge, and wisdom, visualize this panning out in the next 2 or 3 years? What's going to happen? What is your prescription? What is your recommendation?
So I wish definitely we have a crystal ball, but unfortunately we don't. And I also wish we have Akshay Patra. Okay. Having said that, I know I also saw a couple of questions in your Q&A asking, saying that most of the money going to COVID, and therefore what's going to happen for CSR. I just want to get some perspectives right here. Of course, we did get a special grant for COVID, so that's what we've used for COVID, and also given our very strong focus in healthcare, right? So immediately we started even focusing within the COVID-19, all our efforts towards protecting the frontline workers and strengthening the public healthcare systems. And of course, a couple of not-for-profit hospitals as well to kind of run their critical services. So we are very, definitely it was a very rewarding exercise for us. It was very humbling. For the first 2 months, many of these hospitals and deans and even the private hospitals reaching out, telling us seem to be even before all the masks and PPE kits were made available in mass, when we're really scratching the surface for getting the right number, Sandeep, that I also reached out to you, for how do we kind of take it out, our office was shutting down, most of our NGO partner offices were shutting down, and they didn't have the people on the field as well on the ground. And thankful for our partners, because we have a wonderful set of partners in the healthcare. We've actually pulled it out, and bulk of our relief efforts, if you see that, we kind of spent it on protecting the frontline workers. Very well, 76,000 plus PPE kits and 1,000 plus medical equipment, about 4 lakhs of masks and so on. So bulk of our effort and energy was going on protecting the frontline workers, because unless they are safe, we can't be safe. So that's all. And thankfully, we got a special grant, and some of our healthcare also we started focusing on that. Just to answer your question, none of the projects we have cancelled. All our projects and current programs are long-running programs, multi-year programs, and those programs are going on. Yes, there are delays in programs. That is due to lockdown. For example, anything related to schools, there are some delays. And then there are some new projects where there are delays, but we have not pulled out of any project with any NGO. So it's not that we have diverted all our money to COVID. It's certainly not that. Okay. Yes, at this point of time, because of the special grant, our overall expenditure looks high on the COVID, but otherwise, all our regular programs are actually going on. Yes, how do we re-strategize? That's an interesting question. We always believe, and we are all very eternal optimists. I'm sure that we have the resilience to bounce back. But more than the longer term, in a shorter to mid-term, you need to really strategize to see that whether we can maximize the impact for our money. If there are some things which is not feasible in the current lockdown scenario, and therefore, what are all the alternatives? So that's what we started with. In fact, there are some promises, some silver lining. Some of our skilling institute, particularly those who are actually training persons with disability, they seem to have come back and said that we see more opportunities opening up, because a lot of laborers, probably because of reverse migration, whatever it is, they're saying more of inquiries are coming for placing persons with disability now, and therefore we want to actually start the complete online training even when the lockdown started. And interestingly, the attendance percentage and even the participation and engagement has gone much higher through this digital skilling. And many of the persons with disabilities have come back and said that this has actually made it a lot easier for them to attend the training. And now they are hooked onto it and they want job opportunities and so on. So it's also opened up certain other sectors, like particularly skilling in PWD seems to be, they seem to be very optimistic about it. There are skilling which are related to, for example, some hospitals and home nursing and so on. In some places, because of the challenge in the internship and on-the-job training, there have been some delays. But nevertheless, none of these projects we are moving away from. So we are continuing our focus, and we still believe that the focus areas that we have chosen, definitely is still relevant. It is still important. I mean, next to the preventing avoidable blindness, the other area that we focus in healthcare is women and childhood. And we do an interesting project along with IIT Madras where it is like, like after the babies, the neonates who get discharged, so typically neonates get admitted to this neonatal intensive care unit if there are underweight babies. When they get discharged, how do we remotely monitor them? Using a thermometer which kind of has an IoT signaling if there is any alarming fluctuations in the temperature and so on. In fact, that project has become even more relevant because that actually avoids or limits the number of visits the mother and the baby has to make it for the NICUs. During this lockdown period, they felt even more important to start the project. In fact, the project got started just around at the end of the lockdown time. Similarly, our retinopathy of prematurity project that I talked about. Interesting stories from Odisha where even from a red area, red zone, which was declared as a COVID red zone, the babies have been identified in NICUs and their eyesight has been saved just when the baby is about 20 days old and so on. So remarkable set of, I would really put hats off to all the frontline workers, both who are fighting COVID and as well as in the entire healthcare system who are running these critical services. All these are actually possible. So none of these projects have actually gone down. None of the projects are slowing down. Okay. But having said that, some of the things like livelihood, we had been very, very focused on that as well. Like these are the sectors that we do skilling. That is something that now we are open because we always do a lot of thorough secondary research to understand that where the job markets open up, where there is a demand. And it's not an easy solution. We don't have a crystal ball to tell that these are all the areas where the job market is immediately opened up into skills, so many and so on. But we try to do our best of secondary research there. Now we see there's a lot of importance for other type of livelihood as well. Like the people who are returning back to the agriculture, into the rural areas, maybe there are more livelihood opportunities or a different alternative livelihood opportunities. Should we have explored that? Or the other semi-organized sectors like this. So these are the other kind of interesting concepts and projects that is coming to us. And we are actually, I would say that it is still we want to focus, but we are trying to look at little broader to understand that what is relevant in the current scenario. So that is the shift we are making. Okay. But I still believe and I'm confident that, of course, not just the India, the entire humanity will bounce back. So let's stay positive. So I'll leave it there. So we are not stopping anything. It's not a complete re-strategy, but definitely we are aware of the projects that where the impact is high. And those projects are also working out. If you look at it's next to the healthcare workers, you should actually appreciate all the teachers across the globe. How quickly the digital learning has become. We don't have to do campaigns and we don't have to bring the Shah Rukh Khans and, Amitabh Bachchan to come back and go and promote the digital learning now to the teachers. Every teachers and the parent and the students have picked it up, and digital learning had been one of our focus areas in education. And we feel that we are blessed now because all our projects are doing wonderful jobs of training remote rural teachers, and they themselves are surprised that they can actually do these kind of a science demonstration using WhatsApp and using videos and so on. So I believe that there are also positives that the learning has actually really amplified, and it's been on steroid for all the teachers. So I'll stop here.
Come out very, very prominently from what you've said just now. Number one, resilience, bouncing back of humanity. Yes, human beings know how to survive, they will survive. And then how things have taken shape. You see, as we are all aware of, even when this pandemic started, maybe ventilators and all these things, the number production level was low. See how we have done. So that's how it is done. And a lot of measures are going on all across. So it is fine. Mr. Padmanabhan, what would you suggest?
Okay, so
What do we need to do? What is the scenario unfolding?
sure, sure. So, I mean, COVID is, as you rightly, Sandeep said, it's unprecedented. So none of us have ever faced something like this before. So we are learning every day. And again, to borrow from what Rajshri said, there are two things. One is our focus on our key themes, our key focus areas that will always continue. We are not going to, because as I said, sustainability is important. So there's no point in saying that I won't do something just because of a short term situation. So that part of it continues. But obviously with COVID, we also, for the short term, have to focus on some things which the COVID is doing. One is regarding the health and hygiene. So immediately, so if you look at COVID, I'm looking at an immediate response, which is 6 months, say from March to September, October, then a little bit more medium term. And then you mentioned about 2 to 3 years hence. So if you look at the short term, the focus is obviously on to contain COVID and also to make sure that people who are getting impacted, they are getting whatever help is required. So whether it is PPEs, masks, sanitizers, hygiene items, and also we have also had the guest workers or migrant workers situation. So making sure that they are provided for shelter and food. So those are the immediate focus items. And then in some areas, Sandeep, you guys also participated where we work together. So that's an immediate focus to make sure that the impact is mitigated to the extent possible, whatever we could do in our control. The second is slightly more medium term, which is from September, October to another 1 year. What do we do? So now what's going to happen here is that we have to first make sure that education continues. So, when Rajshri talked about this online learning, how people adapted so quickly. But there are areas where connectivity is an issue or where gadgetry is not there, like, online learning, it's good for all the, cities, but what about the villages, towns? So that is one area that we need to focus on to give that connectivity to enable people to continue the online learning program. So I see that as an important focus area to go along. And also there is going to be a short-term unemployment because of businesses not doing the way they were doing earlier. So it's important to make sure that they are provided for. So I think we need to understand where are those areas. Of course, we are doing that within the communities that we are working on. But from an NGO standpoint, you may want to look at what are the hotspots where we are having such issues, and then quickly look at reskilling or providing alternate vocation so that people can get back to their livelihood. Because obviously for their own self-respect, they would like to earn something. So that would be, I would say, a medium term, the next 1 year. In the longer term, what's going to happen is we have to really keep our ears on the ground and see what are the trends, what's going to change. And then there will be a requirement for reskilling. So I think it's important that we understand what's happening. Again, as Rajshri said, nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know how it's going to shape up. While things will bounce back, but some things will change. There will be some things which are irreversible, some which are reversible. So we have to watch out for those irreversible patterns. And we are trying to do that in our own communities to see what is that, and then where can we make an impact. So that's, I would say quickly. So short term, focus on COVID mitigation. Medium term, to mitigate the impact in terms of livelihood, in terms of learning and education. And medium to long term would be to watch out for those changes or transformations which are happening and how could we impact them. So that, I would say, is an overall quick summary on our own COVID assessment and what we are seeing going forward. And of course, you will be partnering us and we'll work together to see how can we create an impact.
Very much. Very well said and put in very concise form. Absolutely. Each word was very, very valuable. So thank you. And yes, it's a cogent plan, short term, mid term, long term. Yes. In the absence of the crystal ball, this is the best way that we have to do. Mr. Milind, how would you suggest? What is your recommendation?
So like both Rajshri ma'am and Mr. Kumar just mentioned, so even for the Eslo Vision Foundation, we are working on the similar lines, short term, medium plan and long term. As our focus is always on eye care, vision care. So that will continue to happen for
I would like you to tell us, on the basis of your very vast experience, or from a broader perspective, the industry as a whole, what should the industry, the society as a whole do? Let's broaden the canvas a little bit.
Yeah, so like I said, I can talk more on Mr. Sandeep on our experience, like what we have been doing. So through the foundation, for the short term, we were focused more on this pandemic. and with all our partners, whether it was Bangalore, Karnataka, whether it was Chennai, Tamil Nadu, or Maharashtra, or even in North. We worked with the government mostly for the frontline workers, and through support through PPE kits and everything what we did for this COVID crisis. So that was what we did for the short term. But our long-term commitment, it remains. We are not going to change that. In fact, we had a virtual call with all our partners sometime in the mid of April to assure all the partners and all our NGO partners to let them know that we are not going to change anything what we are committed, and the focus will remain the same, and the funds will be available for all those activities which are committed. So there is not even iota of change in that. Okay, for the time being, like the skilling program, like all of us know, the educational institutes are all closed down, and we are not sure. Maybe that could be the last thing to get open. So that will be delayed. But for other activities, we are committed and we are doing all possible to ensure we focus on those things on a long-term basis. So I think as a company, the strategic shift was there only on a short-term basis, but on a long-term basis, it continues to what we have been doing. And we, as you, Mr. Sandeep, you know, you are one of the partners working with us. So we have created a separate fund through our Vision for Life. And this is a global activity we are doing not only in India, but across the globe to support the partners, support the NGOs, work with the government. So that will continue to happen for us in Essilor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Datta.
Yeah.
I would like to make the final call. Please tell us.
Yeah. Hyundai Motor, all of us, whether it is me, my company, our employees, and of course, Shah Rukh Khan included, we are all working very hard on saving lives, protecting them, working for how do we save more lives, or protect them from not getting into this, pandemic, disease or whatever it is. And that is, of course, has been the very, very main short-term focus. As you all know, the migrant workers has been a huge impact. So what we did was at every point, wherever we could save them, protect them, keep them, provide them food, giving them shelter, asking them to stay back, or if they are going, providing them food, everything. And many of our vendors and our company, we have paid them salaries for 2-3 months, whether they have come or not come, so that we ensure that they are all safe and they are all happy and they are all, protecting themselves under these circumstances. Another short term, this thing is we have provided within the state, whoever wanted to come, we have sent our own buses to make sure that they come. They stay in a dormitory or a facility wherever we have provided with a lot of safe environment so that they can come to work and then earn these, the livelihood back. All these things that we have done in the short term, it remains to be there for some more time until the whole thing, subsides. And our long term, as I have already told, remains same of the safety and technical training. And one more thing that I just want to mention in one, half a minute is that the village activity that we take, it is there prevalent in Korea, where entire village joins together to do one work, so that they develop that village into a very, a very nice place to live, and also make sure that everybody, is involved in these activities for the common cause or a common social initiative. There is a particular Samdong, so some kind of a Korean name is there. But anyway, the idea is it's an overall development of the village. This we are doing continuously. Every state or this thing, we take one village and do that overall development. This is something very, very beautiful, and we have keep listening to so many stories. We have made, of course, few videos also on this over a period. Possibly it's either available in YouTube or we can share also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. In fact, this village program, Village Uplift program, is one of the flagship programs of Hand in Hand India, and we've had the opportunity of working. In fact, Rajshri ma'am knows how we have done with 6 panchayats out here. full-fledged milestone-driven, target-driven program. And you're right, it brings about comprehensive and holistic upliftment of the people. It does not mean that when we do a village, it is restricted to somewhat infrastructure, etc. It is much deeper. It has to change. And as change makers, it is a responsibility of social development organizations like us to contribute so that people emerge holistically. And taking a cue from this, I would take the liberty of proceeding to the next section, where we, the social development organizations, request your views about what we should do to promote fruitful collaborations. Our humble submission would be, please step out of your own organizations, come to a holistic picture and see what we could do. So what are the areas that NGOs need to scale up to meet expectations of corporates? See, in today's world, in the CSR space, charity is serious work. It is milestone driven, timeline driven, deadline driven, and Hand in Hand India, as you are all aware of, we have always earned the trust of all our valued donors. How would you like us and other NGO partners to build upon this? And as corollaries to this, we would like to learn from you, how can NGOs access corporates and understand their requirements? Because this is a very important thing, the linking, the bridging up. And how can the NGO CSR partnership lead to successful pilots and maximize impact in the field? Mr. Kumar said a very important thing, pilots, take baby steps and go ahead. I think it's the general consensus all across. How do we do that? May we slightly change the order? May I request Mr. Milind to share his thoughts in this? Fruitful collaborations.
Sorry, actually I was on mute. Yeah, Mr. Sandeep. So I think a lot can be done because today it's not only the CSR rule what we have in India, like Mr. Datta just mentioned. It's the money what they spend on CSR is beyond that 2% norm. And today we are seeing many of the corporates, they are coming forward to work closely with the communities and to spend on the philanthropy. So I think what is important for the NGOs or the development sector is to how can we add value. So how can we create value together, working together? It's very important. And this pandemic, in fact, has taught us many good things also. So, like for example, once we recover from this COVID, I hope we won't revert back to the old way of working. So we don't know what the new normal is going to be, but definitely in the public health space and the development space, technology will play a big role, which could be like telemedicine, telehealth, teleoptometry, teleophthalmology. All these things will play a major role, and people will be more open to accepting technology simply because it gives the scale, it gives the requisite reach, and most important, the impact without losing the quality of the service. So I think now with this pandemic and with the changing things, I think the NGOs or the development sector has to really learn from this. How can we use technology more, and how can we use the same dollar or the same rupee to reach out to more beneficiaries? I think that is the most important thing, and that is what actually corporates look at. Because when corporate have a budget or they have to spend a amount of money, they want to reach out to the maximum masses. So we would like to work with the NGOs which really can help us to reach out to the larger community. So I think even after when we come out of this crisis fully, the important thing is going to be that how do we reinvent ourselves? So how do we reinvent ourselves so that we can deliver better services? So I think we should look for learnings, bring more of innovations around the efficiency, and we have to embrace the technology. So I think the NGOs have to really change, and they have to come up with these new things so that the partnerships, what we create a new way of working, which will reduce the cost, and in the same dollar, in the same rupee, we can have maximum impact to reach out to the more beneficiaries. So this is what I can say in short, Mr. Sandeep.
Thank you so much. Actually, since we are racing against the clock, with the permission of our valued panelists, can we take a few questions from our participants? We are getting lots of questions and very valuable points. So with your permission, one of the questions which has come is very important in the current context. The guest workers, migrant laborers. What do we need to do to ensure that their livelihood livelihoods are protected and they have a wholesome life. They have been subject to a lot of turbulence, disturbance, and all that sort of stuff. And simultaneously, the economies and the industries have suffered. What would you suggest, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Padmanabhan, to address this?
Yeah, Mr. Sandeep, should I first answer this?
Yes, yes, most
So
welcome.
Datta
Sir.
to answer that? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Definitely. Mr. Datta, most welcome, sir.
Correct. This is
Oh, he's muted.
You're on mute. Can you please unmute?
hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah,
Audible?
it's okay. Yeah.
So, a lot of
Yes, we can hear you now.
time, energy, and money we have spent on this, and then we have been working on tirelessly last few months to safeguard their interests, protecting them from this pandemic, also making sure that they live in a very proper, safe environment, also ensuring that they don't lose their jobs and they continue their work. All these that we have been doing, which is definitely a I must definitely say is a very commendable thing in terms of even government also. We have been telling them whatever you want us to do, we will do it. Every district we have gone and requested them, what do you want? How much do you want? Which this thing, the area or the migrant worker or whoever it is, we said we will support. Definitely, that is the need of the hour right now, to make sure that these people there are safe, are happy, are paid whatever minimum or whatever that we can do to make sure that they are taken care of. I think that's the utmost priority. All our money is just going on this itself. So our request to all the NGOs are, here we have worked with Mr. Sandeep. I mean, he also.
Sir, you need to unmute. Yeah.
This is something really, good, and I'll be very, very, very happy to, take this support from these NGOs also in the future to ensure, as long as this COVID is there and till we come out of this, we'll continue to do this job. Thank you.
That's really most heartening, sir. That's really most heartening. What we would say is that we would look forward to a blueprint from your side with all the combined wisdom put together. How should the society or the entire NGO fraternity combined with the corporate fraternity in partnership with the government come out? Because that's very important. One or two organizations doing particular thing may be a little bit of a fractured approach. So how do we do that? That would be something that we would be interested in.
My suggestion, request to all the NGOs, is that do come with some ideas as to how we can support them, how we can help them, how we can ensure that they are protected, they are taken care of. Anything in those related areas is always welcome. I think all the corporates will support such initiative. Definitely. Thank you.
This is most heartening, not only from NGOs like us, but also from the beneficiaries whom we serve. As Hand in Hand India, we've got, in terms of self-help groups, about 26 lakh women beneficiaries whom we serve. So I think everybody would be very encouraged to hear this. A lot of questions which are diverse all across. And one, of course, is coming from the NGO fraternity. We are aware that COVID-19 has drained out the funds from many corporates, even from PSUs. We are not getting funds, which is really very difficult. Salaries are not being paid and production has gone down. You can't blame anybody except the pandemic for that. What could be a solution for that? Because while Mr. Datta is very right that implementing partners are required, they also require the funds to do this. Can a separate corpus be set up, some sort of a system be developed? What would you say, Mr. Padmanabhan?
So here, Sandeep, there are two things. One is, of course, short term. Immediately, those who really need the most, they have to be taken care of. So we talked about the migrant labor. Mr. Datta mentioned a lot about that. So the immediate part is to take care, make sure that people are at least getting the basic needs. I think that is important. From a long-term, medium to long-term perspective, I think this pandemic has also taught us to think a little bit about such situations happening. No, such a thing never happened, that for a complete month, nothing worked. And after that, even now, things are limping back to normal. So I think you are right. We'll have to think about, do we set something aside for these situations? And how do we fund that as we go along. So those are some of the things that are coming up now, even in public debates. And of course, NGOs like we would like to brainstorm with you to see what we could do to at least, while we cannot control everything, but at least mitigate the situation. So I think it's a lot of thoughts. We'll have to sit together. We can't answer in in a short time frame this one, but we have to really sit together and understand how we can tackle such things in future with minimum impact on people.
I think an observation like this motivates us to arrange for more sessions like this in the near future with us also. I think we need to do it because this needs to go in a very strategic manner. We need to plan our work and then work our plan. It has to be done like that because the disaster has been really phenomenal.
Absolutely.
But madam, may I request you to share your thoughts also in this perspective?
Sure, I think Mr. Milind actually put it right? You also said that charity is a serious business. So what do you do in business in these kind of very tough times? You definitely go lean, look at a lot in your internal efficiency and so on, right? So similarly, these development projects as well, we need to look how we can actually minimize our spend and maximize the returns or maximize the impact. Technology, there are many things which has opened up which could have taken a very long campaigning efforts. It's become easier now and so on. So look at those opportunities and definitely stay lean, go lean. And particularly I understand there's a lot of small and medium-sized NGOs, just like how in the industry, the small and medium-sized industries have a challenge. Small NGOs which are struggling to pay their salaries and doing salary cut and all that, it's very really saddening. We are ensuring at least on all our projects and all our partnerships, it doesn't happen in none of the projects. As I said again, we are ensuring all the continuity we are assuring, and the COVID-19 is not impacting. But I do appreciate that there's going to be a slowdown on the new projects and so on. So definitely, we can't say that there is no impact, right? So definitely there is an impact. But how do we stay lean and how do we maximize the benefit, right? Instead of making grand plans, again, I draw back from Milind, start lean, stay small, pilot it, see the impact and move on, right?
Yeah.
I guess again said that we will definitely bounce back. And because this is also linked to an industry. If you are linking only to CSR, this is also linked to how the industry themselves are bouncing back. If you look at the development sector work, but we should also look at alternatives. How can we work along with government? Definitely at the end of the day, government has the, if you want to sustain any program, the government has the grants. So how do we work along with government? How do we work along with community? How do we ensure that the community is actually strong enough to pay back for the services and so on? So there are multiple models that we need to kind of ideate, innovate, evaluate. I'm not saying that everything is a simple lift and drop from an implementation standpoint, but this is an opportunity. We always believe that challenges are the time. When you have more challenges and problems, right? That's when the innovation comes. So definitely, let's hope that we will ideate and come back with more innovation to solve the problem. Some of the questions that I see, a lot of questions I saw in Q&A and then the chat box. We get overwhelmed. I know, like Mr. Shanmugam was also asking about some pro bono consulting and all that. So whatever is that area which is our core competency, we've always been doing. Our outreach volunteers have been very active. I'm not so sure about in the areas that he specifically mentioned about opening up and so on. So all our areas, I'm sure that we would be happy to share. If there is anything that our outreach volunteers are doing a phenomenal job for pro bono volunteering. Desktop volunteering is like something that it's really picked up. These kind of consulting services, these kind of forums, sharing ideation, sharing strategies, sharing, our plan processes, all that, we're quite open and welcome. Okay. So I'll stop here. I see too many questions. I don't think we can do justice for all that.
It is very encouraging for us, all of us, to see so much of interest levels. And we have passed the time, but I seek the permission of all of you to have one last question to do justice to our participants. In fact, it's a question slightly different, but I'm tempted to share with you, and I open it to all of you. One of the participants is writing, with the government permitting CSR contribution to set up and fund startups that are incubating at technical research institute, will not the contribution of CSR to social and other health education helping differently abled persons suffer and be affected? Because today there is a huge amount of focus on people with disabilities, the special people and all that. What would be your thought? Because we have been speaking about special people. I leave it to open to any of the respective panelists.
Just to pick it up, because working with PWD and persons with disability had always been one of our horizontal focus, be it health or education or livelihood. We don't see in foreseeable future that any of our focus going away. Okay, I mean, government is right to open up more areas for CSR funding because the national priorities are also evolving. So in that sense, the Schedule 7 will keep evolving, and you will see more and more. Just because a new item has come in the Schedule 7 list doesn't mean that the corporates are immediately going only towards that. If you are worried about the COVID-19 and therefore a larger funding going there, yes, because it has happened, because a lot of our funding, lot of the companies, like most of us, like us, like they've created a special fund and, like spent on that, but there are also people who have taken from the regular fund and spent. So that is a very valid concern. But then just because adding an item in the Schedule 7, I don't think that any of our existing focus is going to change. And just from this panel, almost everybody mentioned about their current focus areas are here to stay, right? If at all, that we'll probably amplify it. Wherever there is a more relevance here, we'll amplify it. If PW is more relevant, we'll definitely amplify that focus, amplify our efforts in that focus area. We'll not be going away from that.
Yeah. So I would like to echo what Rajshri said. So absolutely, I mean, focus areas will remain. It's a short-term situation, and we will come out of it. So I don't think we should worry about this in the longer, that will impact longer-term things. I think that will still be intact, and we will stay invested in whatever we are doing.
So perfect. I think we've had very purposeful and very meaningful discussions. And while we are very tempted to continue this, but unfortunately, time is very precious for everybody. So before handing over to Sahana, I express gratitude on behalf of Hand in Hand family, that is Hand in Hand India, as well as the Hand in Hand Academy, for all of you to have spared your valuable time and have come over sharing your thoughts, your wisdoms, and be rest assured, we'll be back to you asking more, because our approach and attitude is always ye dil mange more. So we'll be back with you for more ideas, more support, and more all that. We also thank our valued participants who've been there, who've been showing a lot of interest and so many questions. It was naturally a very hard choice which one to pick and which one not to pick. But then simultaneously, it's always the problem of choice. So we will be getting back, we'll be collating the questions, sending across to you and circulating this. And I'm sure all of you will agree with me that this may have been just the first session. We need to have many more of such, because it is the responsibility and the vision and the ambition and maybe the passion of all of you ladies and gentlemen to build a better society. And that's why we are all investing our time, effort, and energy here. So with these few words, I hand over to Sahana. Sahana, would you like to say a few words over here?
I think you've said it all, Mr. Sandeep. I once again just thank the panelists. I think as we had a small dry run yesterday, 1 hour, we knew that 1 hour would not be enough. We knew there will be a lot of questions. And in fact, there are many more from only 13 in this Q&A box, but I have several more. So what I'll do is I will compile it and send it over. And if the panelists could spare a little more time to shed light on the answers, that will be very useful, because we've had over 230 participants today. And I think it will benefit all of us. So we will be in touch with you, and we sincerely thank you for your time. Thanks, Mr. Sandeep, for moderating the session. Thank you, participants. And that's it from my end. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much. I also take this opportunity to soon again. Thank you so much. Namaskar.